So Riot just announced a brand new version of the Devourer enchantment, and I gotta say that I love it very much. It sounds strong on paper, and I would likely want to try it on a bunch of champions, but I still have mixed feelings about it, and I'll explain that in a bit. In my jungle history video that I uploaded the other day, I mentioned that farm junglers have had the least amount of time in the spotlight. They were rarely the dominant type of junglers, and for a good reason. Riot will never allow AFK jungle farmers to be dominant ever again. When they did dominate, the games were very slow, and then they ended abruptly because nothing happened until the jungler finally came out all farmed up. This wasn't too much of an issue in competitive because those types of junglers were exploited and ganked and whatever, but in solo queue where disorganization reigned supreme, they were very toxic and very unfun. The repeating issue with these items is that they are toxic from a gameplay standpoint. They encourage the jungle player to basically farm non-stop and disregard the rest of the happenings in the game, or else fall behind and they lay their power spike. In the past, when the jungle farm item was dominant, solo queue was riddled with two frustrating situations. One situation was when your opponent had a jungle farmer, yet your teammates didn't apply pressure to take advantage of their weaker early game or delay their spike, and thus your opponent came out as a powered beast to rake their team. The other situation is when your own team has a jungle farmer, yet they don't do anything to actually help your team. You could be getting ganked, you could be getting camped, you could be losing objectives, but your teammate might just be wanting to focus on farming because they're only worried about themselves, and thus you lose because you were a man down the entire time. Then comes the problem of balancing the items in the first place. Farm items have a history of being insanely abusive. By their nature, farmer items have to be restricted by ramp up. The farm items have always been balanced around having a weak, cost-ineffective start, but a really strong transition. They get stronger over time, either by the amount of gold they let you farm, gaining stacks that improve their power, or a passive that allows the item to evolve into a much stronger item. The issue comes in controlling this spike, and it's made worse by the fact that junglers farm at varying paces. Warwick and Master Yi are both candidates for such items, but they farm it at wildly different speeds. Do you balance the item around the slower junglers or around the super fast ones? Would the super fast ones become stupidly strong if they could get it earlier, or would the slow ones take too long to ever achieve any meaningful value out of it if you delayed its power spike? Still though, Riot has released many farm items in the past and they've all been nerfed to hell and back or just flat out removed when they couldn't control it. However, the new Sated Devourer is perhaps, in my opinion, their best attempt thus far. It has so many checks and balances that at least make it feel like it can be balanced. There may still be abuse cases, but at least it may not be as hellish as Flare was. Riot wants to make this item happen. They pull lots of insurances on the item in order to limit how abusive it can become, which is rather admirable and forward thinking. Past items had issues with controlling the spikes, infinite scalings, and the item's own value being too high for its own good. This one is loaded with issues in a good way. It's a multiplicative item that resonates beautifully with the champions it intends to help. The item has no retroactive stacks, no infinite scaling, the passive isn't insane unless you've actually equipped yourself with other means of making it stronger. It does increase the value of a champion's own steroids and on-hit amplifiers, and it only applies on basic attacks, so things like Warwick's ultimate, Ezreal's Q, or Gangplank's Q that aren't basic attacks but do apply on hit won't trigger the passive. They will still apply the normal Devour magic damage though. The only problem I see is that it may be too slow of an item even for the fastest farming jungler, but the added bonuses to dragons and stuff can rectify that. Still though, it has the value similar to that of a Wit's End, so it by itself is still pretty cost effective once you've evolved it. The item is beautifully balanced around having counterplay and restrictions, and I love it. Pre-Sated Devourer is not bad, but it's not the best of all the jungle enchantments. It also doesn't grant as much of a power spike as the other enchantments, which gives your opponents the chance to abuse you and delay your farm. Even after you evolve it and achieve your spike, you won't immediately ascend into godhood. While you do get a spike, the item only gets really crazy if you're equipped to take advantage of its passive. It encourages you to buy items that will trigger with the passive and denies you the ability to go super tanky while having one item that feeds you so much power, like Flare used to do. In addition, it amplifies the value of your champion's kit if they have on-hit qualities. Basically put, the item is designed around being used by a specific pool of champions as they will get the most benefit from it, and it discourages other champions from getting it. You basically have to go all in with the build in order to achieve god status. As I said, I am quite excited for the item. I actually do like playing farming junglers like Master Yi, but there simply was never a proper item for them that didn't get ridiculous and then nerfed. I am hopeful for this one working out, in fact. My only worry is that I may have to deal with players who will selfishly farm instead of help laners when they need it, but only time will tell if that will actually become a huge problem.